Today's web seminar, AB 2668, Supporting Parenting Foster Youth by Providing Financial and Emotional Support. We're very pleased to be presenting today's web seminar in partnership with the Children's Law Center of California. And before we begin, let's just take a few moments to ensure that everyone is able to log on to the GoToWebinar platform. So here's what we have, a little bit of information. The call-in number is on the screen along with the access code. And as always, we are recording today's web seminar, and we will be posting it at www.californiafosteringconnections.org, which is a website maintained by the John Burton Foundation about all things related to extended foster care. And it will be also posted on CLC's website at clccal.org. And we'll try to do that within the next 2 to 3 days. The most interesting part of these web seminars is really your questions. And so I want to encourage you to use that control panel on the right-hand side of your screen and type your questions as you have them. Often, if you wait until the end of the presentation, it's easy to forget what they are. So we're really hoping to get to as many of those as possible today. So here's what our agenda for the conversation is. We're going to start with a little bit of background on what the rationale for this policy was, then move into the legislative history, talk about eligibility, and then discuss what exactly a parenting support plan is, followed by mentor eligibility, a little bit of guidance on how to pick an adult mentor, some information about the SILP, and then we'll leave lots of time for Q&A. And again, that's often where the interesting stuff really comes up. We have a wonderful group of panelists today. Sue Abrams from the Children's Law Center, along with her colleague Jennifer Lorson. We'll also be joined by Miranda Sheffield, who is a peer advocate at the Children's Law Center, and her adult supporter, Elisa Jenkins. Daisy Braxton and Kelly Walker will also be joining us for the Q&A portion. And that we're really delighted. So they'll be coming towards the tail end when we answer questions about what you've heard today. So with that, let's jump right in and really begin to think about why are we thinking about parenting dependence? Isn't foster care more of a program for younger people? And so the slide in front of you really tells the story of a dramatically changing foster care system in California. Essentially, the number of 18 to 20-year-olds has almost tripled. And we all know what that's due to. It's due to the extension of foster care till 21. I think many of us hoped the uptake would be good. I don't think any of us imagined it would be as strong as it is. And so what we have now is over 9,000 18 to 21-year-olds who are in foster care under the supervision of the foster care system. And that figure is as of April 1st of this year. And so we've had a changing demographic in our child welfare system. And what that means is we've also seen the increase in older youth has also resulted in an increase in parenting youth. And what you have before you is the percentage of young women who were in foster care who had given birth at age 18, who had given birth. So in the old days, really the foster care system was only serving that first column. And so while we've always had parenting dependence, we had nothing like the parenting dependence we have today. You can see that gradual escalation in birth rates from 11.5% of young people who were in foster care at age 18 had their first birth before 18. And you can see that step ladder up to 19, 27.5. And then of those young people who were in care at age 18, over 1 in 3 young women will give birth. So I want to clarify, this is not become pregnant. This is actually give birth. So we're really looking at a system that has become has changed to serve more older youth, and is really serving a significant population of parenting dependents, which which really implicates how we serve them. Just a few more things to touch on is not only are we serving parenting youth, many of our young people have 2 children. That's what this first statistic relates to. You know, that 11.5% we were looking at, this first column, of those young people, almost 40% will have a second birth by age 20. So we're not just thinking about one child, we're thinking about 2 children, which again really raises questions as to what our service for these young people looks like. A few other just facts to share with you. Young people who had 4 or more placements had the highest rate of pregnancy. And then young people who were parenting youth in foster care, their children were 3 times more likely to have a substantiated report of maltreatment. So really, in the last couple years, we've had this avalanche of new information about the pregnancy and parenting experiences of dependents. And that's really been led by Emily Putnam Hornstein at the Children's Data Network at USC, and we have much to thank her for, because it has really given us new information to substantiate concerns that have been held, but we haven't known the extent. So now back to 2668. Why do we need to think about the experience of parenting dependence? Well, currently, the children of dependents are largely being raised in poverty. So what do I mean by poverty? I mean the basic rate plus the infant supplement, if in fact they are getting it. And so what is problematic about that? And I want to just take a minute to discuss this chart that we have right here, because the evidence about the impact of being raised in poverty is extremely conclusive and troubling. This is something where the scientific community, there's no question. The little octagons you see in red are the areas where the impact is most significant for a child who is raised in poverty. Poor physical health, early childbearing, and child maltreatment. Those are the 3 areas where a child who is raised in poverty is over 3 times more likely to experience those negative effects. For poor physical health, this includes asthma, low birth weight, lead poisoning, infant mortality, and short-stay hospital episodes. So it's a very significant impact. We're not talking about just having a cold. We're talking about impacts that have lifelong consequences. The same with childbearing, early childbearing, and child maltreatment. That orange octagon is low school achievement, and those are that's the category where the effect is anywhere from 150% to 290% greater for a child who's in poverty. And then the yellow ones are still, significantly significant, but of the 3 categories, they're the least. And these are cognitive delays, which include a developmental delay or a learning disability, emotional and behavioral problems. So really, we're looking at a collection of effects that are very troubling. And we know we now have parenting dependents in the foster care system. We know their children are largely being raised in poverty. And we know poverty will have devastating effects for them in the long term. And so what should we do about, what can we do about it? And that's really what AB 2668 is intending to do. One thing I'll say before I move on is we know that the timing and duration of poverty is also very significant. Essentially, the time you do not want to be poor is your preschool and early school years, and you don't want to be poor for multiple years. The kind of research on poverty has become much more sophisticated. There's a big difference between being episodically poor and chronically poor. So being poor for multiple years has a much more devastating impact than being episodically poor. But given all this, this does not bode well for our young people and their children. It really shows that they are at the center of the target for being highly at risk. Now, the good news is their dependence of the child welfare system. So there are a lot of children in poverty that we can't do anything about. But fortunately, for the children who are the children of dependents, we have the opportunity to make a significant impact in their life. And that's the exciting part of this work. So AB 268, legislation that went into effect on July 1st, provides additional support to parenting dependents who are placed in a supervised independent living placement. And this little additional support can move these children out of poverty. So what you have is, two columns. On the right-hand column, you have the 858, which is the basic rate for an individual in a SILP, and then you have the infant supplement, the 411. Now, the combined effect of those two benefits is, $15,240 a year, which is below the federal poverty line. Now, you add in the $200 supplement that we're going to talk about today, and you can see, wow, that's bumping the young person out of poverty to $17,640 per year. Now, that doesn't mean that's going to be a comfortable life and they can get whatever they want, but it is technically moving them out of poverty. And truly, the impact of being below that line is significant. It's not, well, it's just a little bit better, so it doesn't help a lot. Actually being over that poverty line is shown to have a dramatic effect. And so that's really what we're going to talk about today, is this $200 supplement that AB 2668 made possible. And to really start that conversation, I want to turn it over to Sue Abrams at the Children's Law Center. Thank you, Sue, for being here.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning, everybody. My name is Susan Abrams, and I'm the Policy Director with Children's Law Center of California. Just to give you a brief overview of our organization, we represent all of the youth in foster care in Los Angeles and Sacramento County, upwards of 33,000 youth. And just talking about the legislative history of AB 2668, it was authored by Assemblymember Quirk Silva, and it was sponsored by Children's Law Center and John Burton Foundation, and we've worked together to sponsor quite a few bills to better provide supports for parenting dependence in the foster care system. This bill particularly was modeled after whole family foster homes, and in case you're not familiar with whole family foster homes, those are homes that provide placements for parenting dependence, and the way it works is the caretaker and the youth together create a parenting support plan, and when that's done, the caretaker receives an additional $200 to help provide support for the dependent and the dependent's child who are living in the caregiver's home. And this was modeled after that to provide the extra $200 to go directly to the youth who are living in SILPs, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. This bill went into effect July 1st, 2015, and an all-county letter was issued by the California Department of Social Services. It's all-county letter 16-67. It was issued September 3rd. And I believe, I'm not sure if there's a link on the PowerPoint, but we're happy to provide a link to that if you'd like to read the all-county letter. Next slide. So who's eligible to receive this $200 supplement? So the elements of first, the youth must be a non-minor dependent, and that's defined in Welfare and Institutions Code section 11400V, and that's a youth 18 to 21 who has a foster care placement order on their 18th birthday and the remaining in foster care. And like Amy said, that was made possible by AB 12, the legislation that went into effect several years ago. The non-minor dependent must be the parent of a minor and must have full or partial custody of the minor. The non-minor dependent must also be residing in a SILP, and I know there's a lot of acronyms. A SILP is a supervised independent living placement. So a SILP is the most independent placement available for a non-minor dependent. It's generally an apartment or a room or a dorm or some kind of living situation that the youth has identified on his or her own, and the youth is residing there with a child in order to be eligible for the supplement. And then lastly, the youth must enter into a written parenting support plan. The acronym for that is PSP. And the parenting support plan must be approved by either the social worker or the probation officer. And a little later, we're going to talk more about what that parenting support plan should look like. Next slide. More information about youth eligibility. So this first point, we're still clarifying. The law is not totally clear, but for non-minor dependents with 2 children, we believe that they are eligible to develop 2 parenting support plans and receive 2 supplements. Non-minor dependents who don't have legal custody of their minor child are not eligible to develop the parenting support plan. So if the child is a dependent of the court or is residing full-time with the other parent and the non-minor dependent has no custody, they're not eligible to receive this supplement. But a father or a mother who has shared custody, they are eligible to develop a parenting support plan and to receive the $200 supplement. Next slide. Who's eligible to be an adult mentor? So this is defined in the law under Welfare and Institutions Code Section 16501.27. It's also discussed in the all-county letter issued by CDSS. So for basic eligibility, the adult mentor must be at least 21 years of age, must undergo a criminal records check, and also undergo a child abuse central index check. And then what's important to note is that a negative result, either with the criminal records check or the child abuse central index check, does not mean the adult mentor is automatically excluded from being a viable candidate. It's just a factor to be considered when deciding whether to approve the parenting support plan. Some additional points: the social worker or probation officer, there's nothing in the legislation or in the ACL that would prohibit a social worker or probation officer from being an adult mentor. Also, the social worker or probation officer is not required to meet the adult mentor in approving the plan. Next slide. What happens if there's a disagreement on the plan or the mentor? Well, first, the parenting support plan should have some sort of resolution method already identified. So when that plan is created, the youth and the adult mentor should work together to decide what happens if there's a disagreement. If that does not resolve the issue, this, like any matter, this can be resolved in court. Next slide. So I think we're going to turn it over now to Jen Lorson, who's also with Children's Law Center.
Hello, good morning. All right, so let's go through, the purpose of the parenting support plan. I think let's start with that. What does a parenting support plan do? It's going to identify supports for the parenting non-minor dependent. Think of it as people or anybody that the child or the youth might want to reach out to that can offer all kinds of support, including emotional, transportation, etc., which we'll talk about in a minute. It's going to outline the specific ways that the adult mentor will assist the non-minor dependent, and in that case, what we'll be talking about is how specific and what exactly does the youth need in order to successfully parent. It'll specify how issues will be resolved. As Sue mentioned earlier, conflicts between both the mentor as well as maybe a conflict that arises with the other parent, or maybe the foster parent, or not the foster parent, but the people who the youth is currently living with. What the PSP does not do, it is not a contract. There is no legal or enforceable contract that's entered into between the two people. It sets down requirements or expectations about the parenting behavior of the non-minor dependent, but it does not grant any authority to the mentor over the youth. Next slide. Okay, so let's go over the elements of a parenting support plan. I want you to think when you're doing the elements, think about, if you're a parent, what kind of supports did you need the first time you had a child? What was happening in your world that you think that maybe a youth might also need? Also take into consideration that this youth has probably and most likely not grown up with strong family supports. So keep that in mind when you're drafting this. Things that I wanted to highlight on this one, obviously communication, but nutrition and feeding. There's times when the child's, what they're eating is going to change. Setting out things on your parenting support plan where the mentor is going to help teach the youth when they switch over to solids. Or if you're looking at the transportation portion, think about somebody who's able to drive the youth somewhere instead of them having to always take a bus or something. Is there somebody available that they can arrange to drive the youth somewhere? For medical appointments, the youth might need to be reminded and get help with finding the right time to go to the doctor. When is the right time to get the shots, and ensuring that they attend all those follow-up medicals as soon as the child's been born. Let's see, purchasing needed items. That might be something that you're talking about with the youth, between the youth and the significant other. Who's going to buy the diapers? Who's going to buy the clothes? Things of that nature are excellent things to put into that parenting support plan. Childcare, this one I want to highlight. Childcare, especially if the youth is in school. Who is going to watch the child when they have finals or they need to sleep the night before finals? So again, including things like that in the plan is extremely helpful. And the other one I wanted to highlight is visitation. Visitation between the other parent is an important aspect that they might want to include in there, and then have the youth mentor help decide what are appropriate times and when the co-parenting person, if they are available, is able to help parent or to help with the visitation. Next slide. Okay, who develops the parenting support plan? All right, the parenting support plan is going to be developed between the non-minor dependent, the identified responsible adult, and a county representative. But note in that last bullet point, if the county representative is not available within 30 days, again, if they're not available within 30 days of the time that the child is born, the non-minor dependent and the responsible adult can sit down together, write up a parenting support plan amongst themselves, and submit it to the county to try to get the funding that way. So just keep that in the back of your mind. If the social worker or probation officer cannot get to it, they can write it together after 30 days and present that. Let's see, additional input. Sometimes you might want to have other people like the attorneys or their investigators or somebody else who's close to the youth be a part of that. And it should be, that plan needs to be developed as soon as practically possible. All right, let's see. Oh, it's actually 30 days after the adult mentor has been identified, not after the youth has given birth. Sorry about that. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, things to consider when completing a PSP. Do it from the youth's perspective, not from your perspective and what you think is the best thing for that child when she or that youth when they're parenting, but this is about the youth and how the youth wants to parent their child. So we're going to keep it focused on their desires and what they want. Focus on your youth's strengths. What is the best thing about that youth? And incorporate that into the parenting plan. If they're going to school, include those things in that parenting plan to make sure that they have the supports to ensure they finish school. When talking to a youth, make sure you let them know this is voluntary. This is not mandated. This is not you have to do, but it is something that will allow you to get the extra $200. So it's a voluntary. It's not a contract again. I love this one, celebrating their decision to identify a mentor. You have to remember a lot of youth come through this system and they have not had a significant person in their life. So the willingness to identify somebody that they're willing to allow to pour into their life and help them help them parent is a huge thing. So celebrating that is really important. Use this opportunity to connect with other resources. And this last bullet, really important. Don't be biased because the mentor is picking somebody who's younger. Again, they only have to be 21 years old. So if they are picking what their sister, brother, or a close friend that's close in age, that is okay. That is not something that we say no to. Next slide. Okay, additional information about the parenting support plan. There is no set form. In other words, you can write it up however you want. There is one that's attached to the all-county letter, the ACL. That is a sample. There is another one that's being drafted, hopefully for Los Angeles County soon. That'll be user-friendly and also written more in a youth-oriented fashion, and we'll hope to have that out very soon. If the plan changes, you need to sit down and develop a new, if the plan or the mentor changes, then you have to sit down and write up a new plan with a new adult mentor. Let's see, there's no minimum level of engagement. It might be once a month, once a week. It just depends on the needs of the youth. This is tailored for the needs of the youth. And let's see, last thing, the parent support plan anticipates there's going to be multiple changes as the youth begins to mature and as the baby or the child begins to mature. So you need to update these regularly and take them serious. These are not something that are done flippantly. These are things that we are doing to help that youth raise a child healthy, and just engaged. So it's really important. So taking your time is really important. And I'm going to turn it over to Miranda, and she'll take it from here.
Good morning, everyone. This is Miranda Sheffield. I am also with the Children's Law Center. I'm a peer advocate. I've been with CLC for the last 4 years, and I'm going to share a unique talking point about my experience personally with growing up in foster care. And also being a teen mom at an early age. I think with this, first off, the parent support plan is very crucial. I know that 10 years ago when I got out of foster care, there was no such thing as AB 12. There was not even transitional housing for youth who were parenting. So this parent support plan is really taking it a step above to say that we really want to benefit youth who really want to parent and have successful parenting skills, and also prevent them from recycling back into a foster care system. So with that said, I exited foster care, it's been almost 10 years ago, and at the age of 18 was when I had my daughter, and who you're going to hear from soon, who was my adult supporter, but was also personally my heart mom. I lived with her. She was my last foster home, and she was crucial even now to today to the development of me being the parent that I am, and also being very supportive and just being really open to helping me to develop as a parent. And I think what was so cool was that right when I got out of foster care, and I was immersed with wanting to be like a really strong parent. I was immersed with saying I'm going to center my life, my schooling, my work around making sure that my daughter had everything she needed. And I think around the time that my daughter turned like 5 or 6, I was like realizing that my self-care needed to be also a focal point so that I can also be an efficient parent to my daughter. And I really feel that that's where Ms. Lisa has come in strong with. She has been able to allow me to have me time, personal time, so that we had an agreement early on that she would allow me time to go and do as I would do as someone who's in her 20s, to kind of just refocus myself and re-energize myself so that I can be efficient to my daughter Jayla. And then also, when I because there was no transitional housing for youth like myself when I turned 18, Ms. Lisa allowed me to stay in her home past the age of 18, and we came to an understanding that I would pay her a certain amount of rent. And I didn't find out till like a year later that this money that I was paying her was money that she had already put aside to help me to save, that I was saving, that helped me to get my car that I had early on. So those were things that really benefited us. And also being able to know that she opened me to other doors of support. So I had her best friend, Auntie Abby. She was able to help me with more of the intricate things of like, Miranda, you know, your daughter needs to make sure she has tummy time. You need to make sure you look out for different things for how she's developing, you know, making sure she's hitting her marks and stuff. So in addition to Miss Lisa, who was strongly supportive, I had other people that were supportive in different ways. And I think that this is what made Miss Lisa so invaluable, because I went from being one big transition of being in foster care for most of my childhood to my teens, to then experiencing another trauma of like, which is a healthy trauma of being a parent and stuff. And so from having to go from one thing to another, I just don't see how my whole existence of being a parent would not have been beneficial if I did not have the support and the assistance from Ms. Lisa. So these are very important things that I feel. And then also, you can go to the next slide. I also think that with picking a adult mentor, that these are really good questions to ask the youth when they're identifying. And I think it's all these things have very important, they have very important issues that can be addressed so that the youth feels like they are being valued. I know one of the big things, like as we're looking at these questions, I feel like one of the biggest things when I was developing into my parenting, because I was 18, I was young, it was really And Miss Lisa, we both know this, that I had to be very assertive. Like there was a certain way that I wanted my daughter, to be raised, and we did not always agree on this. Let's make sure that's very clear that she had a different way of how things should go, and I had one, but we always came to an understanding that, Miranda, I want to be respectful of how you're raising your child, but it was really good that our resolution to addressing, how things should be done was very beneficial, because it also helped me understand on how to come to an understanding that, there's different ways on how my daughter can be raised, and there's different ways of how to address different concerns that I may not be seeing at the time. So those conflict resolution was very important. And I think picking an adult mentor, it was, for me, a little bit more easier because I transitioned from being Miss Lisa's last foster youth and her being my last foster home to her also being my adult mentor, and she provided me easily with a lot of support. And I think it's important with picking someone that it's someone that that you can trust with having that conflict with, but also being able to have someone that can provide you with those things that are very important to you. And then also, like it says, someone who will support your pregnancy. Miss Lisa was very important with taking me to my doctor's appointment and also kind of nudging me at some point to say, Miranda, you got to figure it out too. I'm not going to be able to take you to all your appointments like you probably would want to. So it was a good balance, which was very good. That has helped me today. And then also, like, my parenting role model, like Miss Lisa, because we always had different kids coming out of the house, there was always like different types of ways that Miss Lisa had to adhere to modeling parenting because we all were different. So I think that was beneficial. And so I think just the biggest thing, going back to what Jen mentioned earlier, is modeling after what does the youth really want? What makes this youth feel comfortable with being able to raise their child effectively and efficiently and with love and care and support to prevent them from recycling back into the system. I'm going to now hand it over to Ms. Lisa to add her 3 beautiful sentences.
Thank you, Miranda. You said it all. But, I too agree with Miranda by having this program that is such an integral part of the youth, even though they get pregnant, even though they might be in foster care, that this can help them, and it helps the parent who's there with them to be able to have support for them. And, the money is an important part for them, buying diapers, bottles, everything that they might need. Well, the things that they might need, that $200 or more will buy. And you know what? I was truly, truly blessed the day that Miranda walked into my home and became one of my heart children. Just like she needed a home, I needed her just as much as she needed me. And on January the 19th, when she got pregnant, yes, I do know the date because it changed both of our lives that day. So we went through the pregnancy, we went on vacation, we went through the pregnancy, we had a baby, and we kept it moving. We enjoyed what was happening with Miranda. All the kids, all the girls that were in the house, they really saw her as an example of this is what you do. Not an example to go out and get pregnant, but an example of, oh, this is serious. Because Miranda took it very, very, she didn't take it lightly. She took it serious that she was now going to be responsible for my granddaughter, who is now 11, being raised, and that baby needed Miranda. So yes, I did give Miranda time to do what she needed to do. I'm still giving her time, and she's almost 30. So we're going to work on that too. But giving her time was important for her to figure out what she wanted and how she wanted to raise Jayla. And yes, we did have disagreements on different things. But as I learned, she learned. And we did what we knew how to do. And when we knew better, we did better. So we really enjoyed, and still to this day, my granddaughter turned 11 on October the 7th. And I keep telling her, I remember the day you got here. And I always tell her how wonderful and how beautiful she is. but she always tells me what a wonderful and gracious mom she has. And she's 11. And I said, yes, you do have a wonderful mother. But, you know, that didn't come easy. That came with a lot of information, a lot of communication, asking a lot of questions, being open to changing your program, being open to things not going the way that me as the mother thought it should have gone, and being able to be flexible. And that was really, really important. Miranda was flexible as well, but I had to be flexible as well. I couldn't just go and do the things that I knew I could do. I had to check with her. I had to make sure that she understood her responsibility, because I could have enabled her by, oh, no, I'll do it. But no, I didn't want to do that. I did want to, but I didn't. And I allowed her to be a great mom. Like, she was going to school. She had a job. She was taking care of her daughter, and I would take care of her during the day. But when she walked in that door, after she got out of school or after she got out of work, she made sure that she took care of Jayla, which was a very pivotal thing for her bonding with Jayla. And then once, and she didn't have to go out and buy milk because she was breastfeeding. So she would come in from school, breastfeed Jayla. She would pump. She made sure. So she made sure that she understood. I'm glad she made sure that she understood the importance of what she was doing. And today we have a wonderful, wonderful 11-year-old who's doing well in school, who loves her family, who loves life, loves just everything. And I'm just so proud and so thankful of Miranda and of Jayla, and supporting them in the things that they needed, supporting them in the future that they currently are planning for themselves. If the support doesn't stop because they move out or they turn 29, the support continues. It's always there. Being the mentor, being a mother, just like you have your children that you birth through your body, you have to do the same thing to the children you birth through your heart. It doesn't stop because they leave. They're still there. They're still calling. They're still checking on you. They still have needs. And based on what type of relationship you have built with your child, and Miranda and I have a wonderful relationship. Based on that relationship, you're still gonna be there mentoring them throughout their years and throughout their days, even with your grandchildren. So it's such a blessing. Now notice she only had one. So keep that in mind, because she understood that responsibility, and I'm so thankful for that. And that's it for me. So I'm turning it over to whoever's next.
Well, thank you. I think this is Amy again. I think what we hear is that essentially what Miranda and Miss Lisa established was kind of they were doing this before there was the $200 supplement, and you can tell from the affection that comes through in their voices kind of the potential of this. Now, the challenge for those who are on the web seminar is to try and create something even close to this level of support and encouragement. And we know it's not easy, because we know a lot of foster youth don't have a lot of relationships. But I think this is what we're aiming for, is something like this. And what's great is often parenting dependence. This gives parenting dependence kind of the excuse to ask for the help. In my professional experience with parenting dependence, they often feel like they are being second-guessed because they weren't supposed to get pregnant. Everyone's mad at them, and that may actually have them be less likely to ask for help. And so with this parenting support plan, we have a good reason why they can reach out, ask for help, and just to get past that stigma and the shame and the disappointment, because that's really not productive. So let's go on to, we're going to get through a few more slides, and then we're going to get to some of the real nitty-gritty questions. We probably have received 35 questions so far, ladies, so get ready for the rapid-fire answers. On this slide is kind of an estimate of a minimum of how many people are likely eligible to receive this supplement. And what I'm hoping people will do after this web seminar is go on the California Child Welfare Indicators Project and find out how many young women you have living in SILPs. You can see how many are in age 18, 19, and 20. That second row should say 20. How many are in a SILP? And then based on Emily Putnam-Hornstein's figures, how many are likely custodial parents? So we know we have at least around 589 eligible young women. However, that does not include young people with multiple children, which we know 1 in 3 young people who gave birth before 18 will have a second child in care, and it doesn't include fathers. So we have a lot of young people to go out there and find, and it is urgent we begin immediately. If you go back to the beginning of the presentation, every day they are living in poverty is having a long-term impact on them. So we need to individually develop strategies as counties to find these needles in the haystack. So what are some ideas? The CLC and the John Burton Foundation have worked together to develop a flyer. We'll send that out to all of you. It's pretty basic. We would love it if you'd include a flyer about this in the next SILP check that goes out to young people in your county. You can train specialized units of workers serving NMDs, use your social media, reach out to CYC, inform programs that serve parenting NMDs such as Nurse Family Partnership, WIC, and others. Begin this process in the individual's third trimester of pregnancy for those counties that use pregnant parenting teen conferences. You don't need to wait till the birth of a child to get this plan started. You need to wait. The payment won't start until the birth happens, but there's no reason to not get the ball rolling if the individual is pregnant, plans to keep and have the child. And really to emphasize it's voluntary. I think so with that, we're going to move over just to one more item that's related to this, and we felt like these topics were so related it would be bad not to include it. There was an ACIN that was also issued in September. The state is doing a lot of work around this area, and it's around tracking parenting dependence. And so what you have is a section of WIC was amended to ensure that the complete and accurate data on parenting minor and non-minor dependence is collected, and this was related to SB 528 many years ago, and it's also since been put in federal law as a federal requirement. And so in a nutshell, the State Department has developed 8 new special project codes to track parenting dependence. And I use that shading because the top 4 codes are for parenting dependence whose child is not a dependent of the juvenile court, so the child has not been detained. And the bottom 4 is essentially a replication if the child is also a dependent of the juvenile court, so that there's been a case opened on the child. And we know, and so this is exciting because if we all commit to actually using these special projects codes, we will get the first accurate statewide picture of what we're really looking at. How many young people are parents? How many have 1 child, 2 child, or more than 2 children, and how many of them have an open CPS case? And now that's the beginning of a conversation, but at the current time we don't even have that basic information. So we're very appreciative to the department for issuing this ACIN and its commitment to tracking this information. We're very excited about that. So let's move over to the Q&A portion. There's a lot of questions, and at this point, Daisy and Kelly are going to be joining us, so I'm going to go in to my dashboard here and unmute you. But while I'm unmuting you, I'm going to start with a question, and Sue, would you please answer it? The question is, if you have 2 parents who are co-parenting and both parents are in a SILP, are both eligible for AB 2668? Wow, we didn't jump into the shallow end there. Sue, do you want to start that maybe while I unmute Kelly and Daisy?
Sure, I'll start that, and it would be great to get feedback from CDSS as well. My reading of the law is that both parents, if they each have partial custody, would be eligible for the $200 if they each create a parenting support plan with an adult mentor. And I'm not sure if CDSS has any different information or would like to clarify or add on to that.
We do have Kelly and Daisy unmuted. Would either of you or both of you like to add to that answer? It looks like, Kelly, you're participating by telephone. Are you able to speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, that is correct. Both would be eligible for the plan.
Thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate it. And is Daisy there with you?
Yeah, she is. I don't know. Right?
Oh, I just wanted to know that, but I'll direct it to you, and if you two could consult on questions, that would be awesome.
Okay, yeah, she comes up with the phone right now. She's trying to connect to it.
Great. Thank you. This is another question. Do adult mentors need to be fingerprinted as part of the background check? Kelly, can I ask you that? Fingerprinting. It said it needed a criminal background check and a CACI check. Our fingerprint is part of that?
Yeah, that is correct. They do need to be into the live scan.
Okay, thank you. So here's another question. I'm going to send this one over your way too, Kelly. I hope we're not bombarding you. We really appreciate you being on the call.
No, of course.
It says, we're working with a parenting NMD from another county. She was told her county doesn't have this program yet. When are counties required to begin implementing this?
This was in effect as July 1.
Okay. So given that, is it possible for a NMD to claim benefits retroactively to July 1?
Yes, that is correct.
That is correct. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
And Amy, I would like, this is Sue, I would just like to add to that. LA County is still developing its template, and so we've had the same issue come up. And in the meantime, while our template's being developed, we've been using the template that was attached to the ACL.
Okay, great.
So just acknowledging that the law is already in effect, even if the counties are still developing their own templates or protocols, they can use that template in the meantime just to make sure that the youth are receiving the benefits they're entitled to.
Thank you. Next one, I think I know the answer to it, but I think we should cover it. This one's for Sue. Is the $200 supplement applicable to NMDs participating in PHP Plus FC?
As of right now, it is only applicable to NMDs residing in SILPs, so
Okay.
Unfortunately, no.
All right. Here's a little bit more controversial one. Kelly, I'm going to send this over to you. Can the biological father be the peer mentor if he passes the background check?
Did we said that right? I'm not sure. We have to follow up on that. That is one of the questions that I actually do need to still follow up on.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's to be determined.
Yeah, I'll know that, and I will let you guys know.
Okay, thank you. So another one was about the retroactivity of the benefit, and it sounds like, Kelly, you said that it can be, yes, to July 1st.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Here's another one, and I want to definitely address this one because how can the supportive adult help with child care? A $200 supplement may be helpful in some ways, but I don't see it being helpful with paying for child care since it averages around $600 a month. So I want to step in with this one because we did have a lot of conversation in the development of the web seminar that it's clear that the adult mentor is not not necessarily paid. If the youth wants to choose to offer some type of support, but that it is not a paid position. The understanding should not be they're doing this for the $200. Kelly, is there anything you want to add on that?
This is Daisy. For some reason, my phone wasn't working, so I've joined in Kelly's area, so I apologize.
Oh, no.
So with regard to that, it's not our understanding that, I mean, there's nothing in the bill that speaks to that, so I would never suggest that it is a paid situation. It is a mentor, based on a love support relationship, much like that was identified by Ms. Jenkins. It is not a paid position at all, a paid relationship.
Thank you. I think that's
truly
important
for
to know.
Part of the minor child.
Thank you. Here's another question from a county representative. When will the funds for this program start? And it seems like this will be a request similar to requesting the infant supplement. Are supportive staff such as eligibility workers aware of these funds? And how do we initiate the funds?
I'm not sure where the county is with regards to that, but it is effective July 1, as we mentioned. It can be retroactively claimed. As you guys shared in the presentation and in the ACL and in the bill, is that once the SILP parent, along with their identified responsible person, engages in the parenting support plan, those funds are available, within 30 days.
Okay, so it sounds like that could be a county-level process in terms of how they initiate the funds?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I know that, Sue, you said that LA County has done a parenting support plan. Has the money started flowing on that plan yet? Do you know?
Unfortunately, I don't know for sure, but I was told we now have 2, and so my assumption is that the funds have started as well, that we don't just have the plan, that the funds are actually flowing. But I can try to verify that while this call is still happening. Otherwise, I'll verify it after.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add one other thing with regard to the claiming piece for counties that would have a concern with those issues. Based on the ACL that we put out, they should be contacting the county fiscal folks, and their email address is there in the ACL 1567. I noticed that your webinar post is 1667, but it's 1567 to represent the year that the ACL was put out.
Great, thank you for that correction. We'll make sure to make that right. Next question is the I'm going to ask Daisy and Kelly, is the parenting support plan developed, if the parenting support plan is developed while the young person is in the SILP, but the NMD wants to move to a THP plus FC program with the infant, will they use the PSP supplement? And that's to you, Daisy, if that's...
It's specifically designed for a SILP setting.
Okay.
So I would know.
Okay. So question, what if the parents are both NMDs and they live together?
And the question is?
The question is, would they both be eligible for the $200 supplement if they both entered into a parenting support plan with different mentors?
You know, I don't want to be emphatic about the answer on that because the dynamics, as I'm listening to them, and again, I would defer that to the county fiscal letter that will come out because they're responsible in the area for dealing with the monies and the claiming and the codes and those kinds of issues. So we're still waiting for that to be released. But I would say that, you know, if they're in the same setting and they have joint custody or sharing custody, I'm not really clear how you would then break out 2 separate payments. But that is not a definitive response as to yes or no, because I don't really work in that area in terms of
okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll keep. Well, that sounds good. Well, thank you. And I know.
Oh, Amy, if I could just jump in.
Yeah.
I don't know what will ultimately be decided with the fiscal departments, but I know there's nothing precluding that in the law, and I don't right now. There's nothing precluding 2 non-minor dependents from living together and each receiving their own SILP payment. So I'm not sure that there would be a difference here. You know, we'll see ultimately what the guidance is, but I just wanted to throw in that there's nothing prohibiting that from happening legally.
Thank you. Good point. So another question, this is a very practical one. Who pays for the live scan for the mentor? Daisy, would you mind answering that?
It would be my understanding that the county would pay that, no different than how they're paying for any other live scan situations. Okay.
Next question. Do the fingerprints need to be back before the funding can begin, irregardless of what the fingerprints say?
Well, I mean, it is one of the requirements to have that.
Our reading of the bill is that they have to have a fingerprint clearance, or the live that has to take place. So again, I would have to defer to county practices and how they handle that.
Okay, great. So here's a question, and again, I want to acknowledge, these are coming fast and furious, kind of from everywhere, and we really appreciate you're on and that you're so game about answering them. So what happens if there is a hit on a criminal record or the CACI? What should the child welfare worker do?
Again, I'm going to say that would be whatever the county practice is. The ACL really spells out and indicates that the fact that there may be a hit on a live scan does not specifically preclude that individual from being considered to be that mentor. So it would have to do with whatever the standard law requires with regard to which things can be excluded or exempted, I should say, or not exempted.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add in drafting this legislation with the John Burton Foundation, we wanted to recognize that these are adults. They're legal adults who we're dealing with, so I don't think it's the same rigorous background standards of when we're placing a youth with a caregiver on the one hand, but on the other hand, we do want to make sure it's a safe mentor who's going to provide appropriate supports. So just to factor in, those considerations that we are dealing with adults, but we want to make sure that they're appropriate mentors.
Right.
And I just want to just piggyback on that to be clear in terms of just what the law says. It talks about in the bill that they do undergo the criminal background check and the CACI, and there is no exceptions that I read with regard to the actual penal code, descriptions. So I just want to at least put that out there.
Okay. I think you covered this, Sue, but maybe you just want to, who has the final say in choosing the adult mentor when the NMD and the social worker / PO disagree on the choice? Sue, would you touch on that? Or
again, that's not clarified in law, but I would say, our reading of it would be that the ultimate decision would be the dependency court, which is the ultimate decision maker when generally there are disagreements like this.
Daisy, do you want to add anything there?
I'm not clear with regard to the dependency court piece. We are in the policy shop really for rates, and so in terms of the program component, SILP, that's not completely my area of expertise, so whatever those guidelines are, I would say that's what would be followed. Okay. But again, in the read of the actual bill and what we've put in the ACL is duplicative of what the bill says. I don't read anything about, court proceedings with regard to this is a voluntary relationship to go into the plan itself, number one. Secondarily, in choosing who that responsible person would be as their mentor. And so if those relationships don't work out with regard to the way that the bill is structured and the ACL, it's the SILP parent would be able to simply choose another mentor, would be my understanding.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the circumstance they're describing is when the NMD wants this person to be a mentor. Maybe they get a hit on their CACI, and then the social worker or probation officer says, our county says no, and kind of how that's resolved. But I think we look at what the law says, we look at what the ACL says, and I think when you do that, you're going to see that the law is very clear that it's not prohibitive, and there's room for county practice here. I guess maybe that's one way to say it. So I want to get through a few more questions. Thank you so much for all your questions. Very simple one. This is for you, Daisy. How long do the youth get the $200?
For as long as they meet all the criteria that's identified.
Okay. All right. So next question. Is there a CFL addressing a claiming source?
There is one that is forthcoming. It has not been released yet.
Great. All right. Let's see. So I think this is kind of a repeat, but let's just make sure. Are the background clearances required prior to payment being made? How is the effective date of payment determined? For example, the date the plan is signed, the date the clearances are completed, the date the child is born.
Not born. I mean, once that 3 criteria.
Okay, I was just trying to, we were just conferring a little bit and listening to the elements that you laid out. In terms of the child being born, that those things are not described in the bill itself, but so I'm not really sure on that one.
Okay, so but we do know, as you said earlier, the criminal background check is required. My guess would be of the 3 things, that might be the one that takes the longest. So a lot of repeats around retroactivity. It sounds like it's clear that it is retroactive till July 1st.
That's correct.
And it is clear that this is only for young people in the SILP. There's a lot of questions about if they can migrate it over to FC. They cannot, and the $200 will stop as their SILP payment would stop. And there's a question
Amy,
about
I just want to add this. If they're in foster care, there is an option for whole family foster homes where they would complete a similar plan and the payment would go to the caregiver.
Right.
So I think it's just important to remember that even if the youth is over 18, that's still an option.
There's a question about the DCFS policy, and we will send out this presentation that has a link to that ACL. And here's another question. Can the biological family that the NMD, from which the NMD was removed, be the adult mentor, like a biological mother?
I think, again, we would defer to what the criteria is in the bill.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it's silent on that, and so it's one of those issues. All right. So this is a very practical question. For retroactive requests, does an informal plan have to have been in place already? What determines eligibility for retro pay?
Again, I would say that it is the agreement between the SILP youth and the identified responsible person have engaged in and has written their plan.
Mm-hmm. But the ACL didn't come out until September, and if we want to go retro till July 1st, I think the person is asking if there was someone like Ms. Lisa, who clearly has been an adult supporter to a young parent. Miranda's no longer in that situation. They didn't know about the bill, so they couldn't have developed a plan. So how would we do it retroactively? Would it be enough to have been an informal plan since the actual ACL hadn't come out specifying the bill?
Ooh, I don't know. That sounds like a technicality, and the reality is that the funds or the relationship was effective July 1. Correct that the ACL came out late, so I'm not really sure. I guess we'd have to address those as they're presented, or the county would.
All right, thank you. So a lot of questions about bio parents. I think we've covered that, which is the bill is silent on that, and so there's nothing prohibiting it. All right, so just one or two more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. The criminal background check may create a number of problems, as questions have already risen. Why would we do a live scan and background check when we don't even do one for SILPs? So Sue, you and I were both part of this policy-making process. Do you want to offer the rationale for that?
Sure, yeah, and I think I talked about this earlier. I mean, I think the legislators were more comfortable, and many of the advocates as well, with there being some sort of responsibility on the county to make sure that these are appropriate mentors, because we are condoning this relationship. So I think that was the goal, was just to get the information provided to the counties, and then have it be a factor that's considered, not necessarily prohibitive, but just a factor to be considered. If we find out that there's serious hits on the khaki and there's been serious child abuse in this adult mentor's past, then I think more work needs to be done to ensure that this adult mentor is an appropriate mentor and is going to provide appropriate support for the non-minor dependent.
Right. All right. Well, I think that really covers it. We're at our time. There are a lot of questions. This entire thing has been recorded. There was one request to kind of translate what was spoken onto Word, because a lot of great questions came up. I think we'll work with Daisy and Kelly. Maybe I can write those up and share them with you. And then we'll also, there were two questions where a little bit more kind of inquiry needed to happen. But I want to really thank everyone for being on today's web seminar, and thank Kelly and Daisy from California Department of Social Services for coming on and taking this hailstorm of questions. Also thank Sue Abrams and Jennifer Lorson and Miranda from the CLC, and Ms. Lisa Jenkins, her adult supporter. It's been a really great conversation, and now our work is to get out there and find these young people and help them get this money that can make a tremendous difference in their lives. So we'll be sending out the web seminar and the recording shortly, and just really appreciate all your time and attention. And with that, that concludes today's web seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amy.